All
We're
right, hi
live.
everybody. We are live. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone in the chat room can hear us and see us. Can you guys just confirm for me that everything is good? Give me a thumbs up, say it's all good, whatever you can, so we know so we don't have to fix any issues before we begin. If it is all good, then we can get started. Reading. I'm looking it up myself too. Cool. It looks like it's okay on mine, and Susan says she can see us. Everyone else, it looks good. Chris says, Mariana, yep. All right, cool. Everyone says it's good. All right, great. Thank you for joining
Excellent.
us, everybody. This is our second chat that we had our first chat yesterday. This is our second chat for week one. We'll be going over lessons 1 through 5 from Kevin's class intensive. We have two hosts today. I'll let them introduce yourselves. Do you guys want, Amanda, do you want to go first?
We'll be
Sure.
first.
Thank you. I'm Amanda. I've been acting for all of my life, but I just recently got back into it 2.5 years ago. And I just recently did Time of My Life by Alan Ayckbourn. It's a British play. It was really awesome here in Denver, and performed at the Denver Performing Arts Center for a week doing their master class. So that was really cool. I've been in Kevin Spacey's class, and I think it's awesome. And I'm really looking forward to working with everybody. And if you have any questions about agencies or anything, if you're in this kind of regional area, I have a lot of extensive information on that. So anyway, I'm Amanda. Hi.
Hi,
And
Amanda.
looking forward to talking with everybody.
Cool. All right, go ahead, Jeff.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff. I'm from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. I don't know if there's any other Canucks in the room, but if there are, hello. I've been acting only since grade 12. I never took any drama or anything like that, so everything since then has been self-taught. Um, and I did a lot of community theater for a long time, and just was always felt like there was something more there. So I kept going forward, which always annoyed these companies I was working with because they're just quite happy doing their community theater, getting their lines down and whatnot. But eventually, I did gather around a group of people that felt the same way, and so we started our own company, the Ghostlight Players. We just started this last year, and in April we closed Noises Off, the Michael Frayn infamous farce of the difficult set. And then right after that, we did Sam Shepard's Fool for Love, and right now we're doing Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. And Kevin Spacey has probably been an inspiration for me personally since I saw him almost back to back in Usual Suspects and Seven, and then found him back later on when he was in Swimming with Sharks and with the other one, American Beauty. Anyway, to find out that he had a class and having been compared to him enough times by audience members, I thought it just made sense to do this. And then to find out that it became an intensive class, thank you, Brad, for doing that. I found that
Yes,
the
thank you.
structure is the best thing, and I'm so excited to get to work with people, meet new friends, make new friends, and collaborate with everyone here and talk about these exciting ideas that Kevin's bringing up, and we can all use. I know we can all use. I'll be using in rehearsal 5 minutes later. So great.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here. So basically, everyone who's in the chat room, let me explain how this works. The three of us will be going through the discussion topics, but I'll also be getting discussion topic conversations from you guys. Every time we move on to a new topic, I will post it in the student group. Feel free to leave your comments. When we're talking about it, I will pull in your comments from the chat room to what we're saying. So this just keeps us on focus, keeps us on track. So we'll go through everything, and at the end, we'll have a great chat. It tends to work pretty well, and it's usually a lot of fun. So nothing too serious. And looks like, just so you know, Jeff, there's a lot of Canadians in the group already.
Yay! I feel the warmth. Feel the warmth. Maple syrup
Yeah.
goodness.
So I'll start with our first discussion topic. Oh, by the way, yeah, we'll be talking about the lessons for about 40 minutes. At the end, we'll set some time aside to review assignments and answer any questions you guys have about the class intensive, whether it's choosing your monologue or uploading your monologue, whatever it is. We'll set some time aside at the end to do that. Um, Sounds good? All right, so let's get started. Our first discussion topic. So in the first lesson, introduction, Kevin says a lot about being an actor, why he's been an actor, why he's doing this class. But I wanted to get everyone's opinion on what does it mean to be an actor to you? and why is it that you act? So I'll let you guys answer this first while the chat room is answering in their chat. What do you guys think?
Take it away, Amanda.
To me, being an actor is about being present with your audience, but also about engaging in the energy that we all share. I think it's really cool that we are able to exchange this, and I think it's so much more than just doing like everyday jobs like retail, because you still have that exchange, but then you connect on this other level. So I really enjoy it, and I love being there with other people. I could care less if I'm an extra or if I get the lead. I'm like, this is so cool. So that's to me what it's about. It's about really diving in and really embracing what acting is, and really stepping into somebody else's shoes and getting into their wants and their needs. So, yeah.
Cool. Jeff, how about you?
For me, when I started, it was just about being on stage and being noticed and being silly. And it wasn't until I did a Chekhov piece that the director is like, okay, you're lanky and you can do funny things, but do you know why you're doing them? And then finding an honesty. Even in your most farcical roles, there's always a logic and an honesty to what you're doing, and it is the honest reaction. And then once you get beyond the part that you're trying to appease an audience, and what you're really trying to do, and as Amanda mentioned, is trying to make a connection. And sometimes the connection, it doesn't mean you have to ham out to the audience. The connection is made when you have that awesome moment when you can look someone in the eye on stage, and you're having an honest conversation. The lines are there, but they're not there. They're coming out instantaneously. They're spontaneous thoughts, organic. That's the word exactly. And the fact that it can change every night, that's the exciting thing. It's never the same road twice. Sometimes that line comes out angry. It's those kind of journeys that excite me and always make me want to go further into acting and figure out, what else can I get into me that can help me tap that and have those kind of experiences and share those experiences with my fellow actors and get them on that same kind of twisting road. And so it's the collaboration and the excitement of acting that keeps me here and gets me doing stuff like this. I just love it. Love it.
That seems to be what everyone's saying in the chat room, too. What was it? Who was it? It says, Mike said, I became an actor because I was a born ham. So similar to you, just like being funny on stage. And then since then, it sounds like Mike's been doing more. And since that, taking that introduction to it. Pat Patterson says, I am an actor because we are storytellers and realize that within the fabric of these stories lie our collective experience as a culture. So that seems pretty similar to what you said, Amanda, that how it's like connecting with people and sharing those interactions, which are so cool. And telling, of course, like delivering stories. Right. We have a couple people. Yeah, exactly. Everyone's trying to share their story and connect with others, right? Mm-hmm. There's a couple people in here who have said that they're not actors, but they're singers, and it's similar thing about sharing their stories, getting their message across through their art. And for actors, it's through acting and creating characters and being other people. For them, it seems like being their music and writing the things that tell their story. I wanted to read Janet's comment too. To me, being an actor, I love to bring each individual into my heart, soul, and being, so they felt and experienced everything I am when being this person in each scenario. That is my passion, love, and job as an actor. Lift the writer's words off the play and have the audience come along the ride with you.
Look at the text. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, awesome. There's so many more people in here. I can't read them all, but there's great comments going on in the chat room. So our next discussion topic, in the first lesson, Kevin states, the theater's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, and it still makes my heart beat very fast. And I just want to know if you guys feel the same way, 'cause I think that's a general feeling that most people are already sharing in the chat room. But yeah, do you guys feel that way?
Absolutely. I feel like if your heart's not beating fast, it's not for you. Like, you have to go in there wanting, like, and feeling the text and feeling the story that you're putting through. I get so excited, and some of it's nerves, and some of it's like, wow, this is awesome. So, absolutely.
For me, my friends and family are like, Jeff, I don't even know if you'll ever be able to find a wife, because they'll have to understand that theater is first for you. And a lot of my friends can tell when I haven't directed for a long time because they'll watch me. And my one friend who's working with me on Midsummer, he goes, Jeff, I can tell when you're horny to direct. Like I can just tell when you really have to get back into it because you get twitchy. And it's just, people who know me for like 5 minutes, just a little bit of talking, it goes into theater. They know right away. They can see it. They can feel it from me that it's a passion. And it's so exciting to run into other people that are as passionate about theater because that's when great things can happen, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. In the comments, there's everyone absolutely yes, agree. Chris Bass says, for me, acting is a drug, the best drug, and I don't want to go to treatment,
Yes.
which I love. And
You
then
don't do it, you like your heart, you're like, I can't just sit here. I need to be doing it.
you got to get on that stage or in front of that camera, whatever it is. Susan says the arts as a whole does this for me. The lingo, the vibrations of like-minded people, I get it, they get me, which I think again translates to artistry within actors. And we talked a little bit already about musicians and sharing the message and connecting with people. Cool. I'm going to move us on to the next topic. So the next lesson we're going to be reviewing is the next lessons 2 and 3, which are about choosing a monologue. In those lessons, we saw 2 different monologues, one from Chantal and one from Alison. Alison's was from the play Assassins, and I can't remember Chantal's play right now, but she did a play, monologue about her daughter and speaking to the father of her daughter and the life that her daughter leads. So the first question is why, in these monologues, it's all about choosing the correct monologue. So why is choosing the right monologue so important? And how do you know when you have chosen the right one?
If I can speak on that one first.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I feel that sometimes people choose monologues because they're not known, and so like that's like your automatic first step in. So when you come into audition and you're using a piece that is not from something people know, like oh, good, it's something new to watch. But I think the danger there is that you can find a monologue that on the outside seems really good, but does absolutely nothing for you on the inside. If you don't believe, if you can't take that character's point of view when you're saying this secret, this truth, then it's just going to come across as a memorization exercise with some external gestures, but it doesn't really move anything. And so I think that's kind of what Kevin was saying to her with the Assassin's monologue. Like it is a good piece, but me watching it, not to be harsh or anything, but me watching it, I thought that she wasn't honest with it. I think that she totally believes in Manson, and so I think it's a foregone conclusion almost. And so like the twinkle devil smile, it should almost be like remembering that first time you saw your boyfriend's twinkle devil smile, and that's what charmed you. And then it doesn't even matter that he killed somebody because in a way that's really exciting because who does that, right? That's sexy. And I think that's what would be a really dangerous place to go, and I think that would have made that an eye-popping piece.
Interesting.
I agree.
Oh, you agree?
Pat?
You agree?
Yes, I agree. I think that there were some moments that could have been carved out better, that it was really awesome in some ways to watch, but I think there was a lot, like you said, the honesty wasn't quite there, and there was a remark she made about her dad that I felt like, where is this going? I don't remember what it is. I'll have to rewatch it. Everybody, it was towards the end of the monologue, but you'll notice like it was almost like she didn't have a specificity on who she was talking to, and so I felt like I needed that specificity.
I almost wish that she relished that her daddy called her a whore.
Yeah.
That she took it to like I'm not just a whore, I'm the whore of Babylon. Like that's what I am, and I've been confirmed by this devil that I am the same I'm the same super species as him, and you will judge us as being trash, but really we're way above you. We're so far advanced, and I think that'd be an exciting place to go.
I agree.
And so I want to read a couple of the comments from the chat room. Cola says, it's important because no actor can play every role, so you need to find something appropriate for you, and that will show you in different lights. You know you've chosen the right one when you don't get bored of it, and then you cannot help memorizing it effortlessly. So again, like feeling that connection to the monologue. Um, Mary F says, I think you have chosen the right monologue when you can personify the emotions that are revealed in the text while also understanding the emotions and circumstances that the writing may not directly state. When you can really become this person speaking, then you have found it. And I think that's what you guys are talking about, Alison's piece, is that finding that connection to the text and understanding where she's going with it, and maybe taking it to that next level of who her character is.
Layering it.
Yeah, exactly, creating those layers. Eric just says, choosing the right monologue is so important to give what you as an actor have capability to do. I know I've chosen the right one when I have a soul connection with the monologue. It has to be like it is speaking from my heart. And this is, I think, majority thing that's going on is you have to connect with it. You have to, understand what it is. When you start feeling it, you start feeling the character, and you're getting the words, and it becomes effortless. That's when you know you've gotten the right one. Yeah, so really cool.
Just recently, I finished a one-man show about the Canadian painter Tom Thompson, and he gave it to this other actor to do, and the other actor couldn't find anything within the text. He just found all these highfalutin words and these high concepts, and he couldn't find why Tom Thompson was a character he should do. And so he backed out, and my director friend gave it to me to read, and thought, if you know anyone that can do it, please pass it on. And I read it, and what I read in the piece, besides all the highfalutin and art concept text, was this fear of what happens when you die, and the fear of leaving anything behind as a legacy. And will anyone ever recognize the mark you've made on the world? And will anyone ever, like, people think you're a jerk now, but what will they think of you in the future? And these are all the same fears that I have as a person. So I was able to bring myself into the Tom Thompson and go from it for a 75-minute, essentially, monologue, and bring that with that. And it wouldn't have worked if I didn't have those same fears, or was able to confront those fears through this piece. So yeah, I think it's very important.
That's actually, so that's really interesting. I mean, it's not Kevin Spacey's class, but in Dustin Hoffman's class, he talks about Saddam Hussein, and just how he can connect to like someone like Saddam Hussein, or like the grandfather or something like that. Or Mr. Saddam Hussein, or was it someone evil? So it's like he's a grandfather, and that's how he can connect to them. And then he says, I don't want to see the jerk. I want to see the jerk in you. And it's like finding like there's something in you that you connect with that character. So it's very much true. Like if you can find something there, then that's a character for you to play. I'm going to move us on to the next topic, which is about the danger of monologues. Like Kevin says, monologues are dangerous because they teach you how to work alone. Why is that dangerous, and how can you find ways to not work alone with when you're doing monologues?
If you don't mind, I'll take this one.
Yeah.
For me personally, I did start out doing monologues alone, and I could tell that I wasn't really connecting with the honesty of the piece, and I wasn't able to really have specific choices, and so it didn't come across as me being true to the character, and so it can get really dangerous when you're not actually diving into the piece. And so you have to be really there and present, and you can't be present if you're not with another person very well. So it's good to have friends and shoot them off friends. And I use my husband a lot. I'm like, hon, I have a piece. I need help. So he's really supportive. He's like, if you don't do it, you get grumpy. I need you to be doing this. So yeah, I'll help you. Which goes back to what you were saying. I was like, yeah, I use him a lot.
I think it is important because, one, it opens you up to criticism if you bounce them off someone. So that way, if you do lose that audition, then at least it's not as devastating because, it's always a work in progress. But I think if you have something stuck in cement like that, which is what your audition pieces usually turn into, then it becomes more of a trick and rather than a performance. And you just kind of like whip it out and like, oh, this is how it's always worked, and these hand gestures have always worked, and that little smirk at the end of that sentence always brings them in. And you lose the feeling, you lose the honesty, and then it's just the external that you're doing. It's almost like a photocopy that you've handed over, and that's it. Which I think is why a lot of directors, I think if you do put in an audition piece, will say, okay, now do it as a 10-year-old boy, or do it as if you're a dog. So I think if you're unwilling to bend that way, I think working off of somebody else will open you up to more options and keep that piece fluid for you.
Yeah. So basically, you think it makes you find new things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna read a couple comments from the chat room. Here it is. Um, Cola says, I think this is a difficult topic if you're a film, TV actor like me. We have to rehearse at home and turn up ready to shoot without having met our co-players. This is probably the biggest difference between theater and film and TV. So I think, again, that's like a difference between film and television monologues. And I think Dave Connect mentioned like questions about monologues when it comes to TV, film versus theater. And we'll talk about that at the end. I think it's a really interesting topic. And Janet says, as acting is meant to be together, not alone, you're reacting to other people's lines and reactions. It's not about you, which is
Mm-hmm.
true. And I think that's what Kevin says in the class too. He says it's like your acting is not, it's not acting, it's reacting to other people, which I mean, perfect to what Janet just says. That's what I just read. I think that I can't find everyone. Shit's going really fast in this chat room. Sorry, guys.
And that's true, especially when you don't know, like, even in TV acting, you never know what the other person's going to respond to.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be ready to be able to react to that person. So you may know the lines, but it may come out completely different because of what you're receiving.
So I think there is a similar situation in theater as well, because usually when you do comedies, you don't even realize how funny it is until you have that first performance, and then the audience starts laughing at something, and you realize, oh, I have to react differently now.
Yeah.
Or even in dramas, because sometimes you think you could be in the heaviest drama, and then you realize something is actually funny to an audience, and you have to be able to work with that.
Absolutely. And reacting to the surroundings as well. Because last night, closing night of our play, I slammed down a glass and it exploded. I was supposed to, and I had done it this whole time, but it actually exploded. And people, like, I looked out like, oh crap, and the rest of my people were like, oh God, but it was all in character, and so everybody was like, how many glasses did you break during the shoot or during the whole run of the play? And I was like, yeah, that was our first one. Play that off. So you never know what's going to happen night to night, which is awesome.
Yeah, part of the excitement.
Alex says, as an actor, you must be able to react to the other actor or the audience. I relate to the way jazz players can react to what other instruments do. It's an important skill for an actor. And I think that's interesting because, Jeff, we were talking before we went on about you're doing it in a monologue, not a monologue, but in a play where you're directing it and acting in it. And you said it's kind of like a jazz show.
Yep, it's like very much like a jazz ensemble. When I directed Virginia Woolf, I very much based it off of, and this is Lula down here, by the way, Miles Davis and John Coltrane's collaborations, and just being able to step in and step out, but always keeping the momentum going and supporting your other actors and everything like that. Anchoring is like a huge thing. Someone has a monologue, and you're not saying anything, you don't just turn off. You keep the music going behind them so that they're supported, and everyone knows to pay attention to this awesome solo that's happening on stage right now, and just follow them. And I use a lot of jazz euphemisms when I'm directing. So yeah, totally agree.
Awesome. I'm going to move us on to the next topic. We kind of touched on it a little bit. The question is, what was the difference between Chantal's monologue from Lesson 3 and Alison's monologue from Lesson 2? And we talked a little bit already about Alison's, but we haven't talked much about Chantal yet. And I think, universally, if you look at the comment section under Lesson 3, which is where Chantal's monologue is, there's everyone felt that she was very connected to it. The responses like, wow, that made me cry, or that made me feel like I felt her there. So in his lessons, Kevin said to Alison that the monologue that she'd chosen wasn't not the best piece for her, or maybe it's not the best piece in general, but with Chantal's, immediately he said this is a great piece. What was it about these two pieces that made them so different?
Chantal was funny with her first run through because you could tell she was kind of sandbagging it. She looked a little bit aimless. She was unsure as to where to look. It's almost like I'm almost a bit embarrassed to be this open with you. And one of the greatest things that happened was her sitting in that chair and it took all that fidgety and all that anxiety and squeezed it into a small tube, and so it had nothing left to be but that fury that was coming out of her, and she just tapped it, and she just let it roar, and then after that initial roar, when she settled down into just like about maybe 8/10 of where it was before, it was just blistering. It was so good when she's just leveling all this stuff at the father. Like you could just imagine nothing but a skull staring back at her after everything that came out of her mouth. And it was just, it was beautiful to watch.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I agree. Like, it didn't, she seemed less grounded. It seemed a little more airy when she was up. And so there's this, like, the specificity of it, of what she was communicating to this man who left her and the child, was not quite there. When she sat down, oh my God, that communication rang loud and true. She was just there, and you felt it. And I thought that was really awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
That's what the chat room's saying, similar to. Janet says, I found with Chantal, with Kevin's help, she dug deeper the second time around, and when he got her to sit in her hands, she allowed her to experience the extreme edges of emotion. And it made the character real, and she became a human being that had a heart. So, and I think we all can agree, like when she sat down, it was definitely a different thing when she was, again, not as airy, not as like, loose about it when she sat down, and she really connected with what she was supposed to be feeling. That's when it changed. Cola says, Chantal and Alison were like day and night. I watched Chantal's twice and cried both times. Alison threw the lines away. Some of them I couldn't even hear. I can't tell you why I think Chantal was great, though. It just pierced my heart, both before Kevin's direction and after. Right. And I think that really speaks to the monologue, the piece itself. And I think Kevin talks about this a little bit in the class about how Chantal's piece it's a full development for her character. You get from the beginning to the end, something happens. She goes through something. Alison's piece, she's telling the story to someone else, and it's not as complete. Interesting enough, we talked about it yesterday, and there was a comment in the chat room. Someone said that there's a difference between telling a story, the way that Alison's piece is like telling a story to someone else, and being in the scene in the moment, and that you should choose a scene that's a monologue that's in that moment. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, because again, Alison's piece. Sorry, Amanda. Alison's piece. It came across as like, well, who's going to do this? Who's going to do Sondheim Assassins? Like Sondheim's a recognizable enough name, but Assassins really isn't a known show, which is funny though, because my buddy actually was in an aborted production of Assassins, so I knew the piece when I heard it. But again, it just came across as like this seems dangerous, so I'm going to do it. But she didn't go for the danger, whereas Chantal, she was scared to go right in there, but then with Kevin's encouragement, once she knew that she was allowed to go there, knew she could go there and knew how to get there easily. So I think that's the huge difference between the two.
Yeah. I wanted to read. I just lost it. People were talking about one of the lines that Kevin said, which is that you have to let it hurt. And I think they're saying you have to be vulnerable. As Sandelin said, true, you have to be vulnerable. Tim says the second performance was better. Kevin gave her permission to let go. And he does believe that there's times when the audience needs to feel that something is being held back. That is super difficult to achieve, he says. Janet says, Alison needs to show the character and make it more memorable, to connect the words and make it memorable. Be willing to let it hurt, to let the audience use their imagination when they hear it. And Jackson says, I think it's like what Kevin says about the stakes. We start to feel how high they are when we are in it with her. So I think there was, between the two monologues, there was a couple of things going on. One is that the stakes just weren't high enough in Alison's, which was made it harder for her to connect, but also harder for the audience to connect with her.
And to talk about that one point, Brad, where you said sometimes the audience has to get the feeling that something is held back. I think that's very true when it comes to a scene that involves crying, or laughing for that matter. I think the best thing to do, and I got this from a couple of workshops, and I use it a lot when I direct, is like the basic rule I've always had with actors, because a lot of them will come up to me in audition and go, I can cry on stage. I'm like, well, that's fantastic.
That's great.
I don't want you to. I said the most powerful thing you can do, and I'm sure people can recognize this in real life, if you're talking to someone and you can tell that they're about to cry and they're trying not to cry, that is going to make you cry. And the second that you cry, they're going to cry. So I find so my basic rule to my audience, to my people that love to cry on stage is like, you are not allowed to cry on stage until you know someone in the audience is crying. Then that's your permission. Then you can share. But for now, don't rob the audience of that moment.
Do you feel like that's hard to hold back though? For some people, I think like some people like
Oh,
not crying
I
is a
had
lot
one
harder than
actress.
crying.
When I did Crimes of the Heart, my actress that played Babe during her big moment right after she's tried to commit suicide, spoiler alert, she just like starts sobbing on stage, and the other actress is like trying to console her, and she came up to me, the actress that was crying came up to me afterwards like, I felt so bad. I said, no, it was beautiful because it was honest. I could tell you were trying not to, and it was destroying the audience, and it's just beautiful to watch you embrace the character and let that out. Like, that's
Yeah.
going to be one of my favorite performances that I've watched for a long time. So thank you for allowing that to happen.
That's awesome.
And
That
I
sounds
felt like Chantal did a really nice job of that both times, but definitely in the second time where you could tell she was starting to take it like even more inside herself.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely heightened the stakes a lot. So that was really nice. And I think once you're good at a monologue, like she came in pretty strong anyway, all you can do is just get more specific. And I think that's what Kevin Spacey did with her. He was like, okay, now try this. Because that's what we do. We have to be willing to change. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that was really awesome.
cool. I'm going to move us on to our next lessons, which are lesson 3 or 4. Sorry, we're on lesson 4 now, which is about carving out words. Um, and in this one, we saw the I think it was the Othello
Mm-hmm.
monologue, which I mean, Kevin had a lot to say about it. But his biggest thing was that you had to choose specific words to emphasize. And he said there are a number of ways to figure out which words to emphasize, but you can't emphasize them all. So I want to know, how do you guys make these choices when you're doing a performance? How do you decide like which words are the ones that you have to emphasize, and what influences those choices?
Coming from a community where we do Shakespeare a lot in Windsor, but we tend to do it. The method that a lot of actors use is if you say it fast enough, it'll be impressive enough that the audience will just let you go by with it. And what you end up is a lot of dead Shakespeare and a lot of uninterested audience people who have no clue what the story is. And a lot of people don't want to take the time to research the iambic. And even if you don't use the iambic in your final product, the iambic will at least tell you, one, which words you should be looking at for stress, and two, those tougher words to say. He actually teaches you how to say them through the
Absolutely.
rhythm of the sentence. And there's so many words that nowadays we take syllables out of them, so that it's just Shakespeare becomes a mess in people's mouths, and they try to say it naturalistically. No offense to Jack Lemmon,
Yeah.
but I don't ever want to hear him say Shakespeare again. So,
Well,
yeah, go
if you
ahead,
don't
Amanda.
mind, I would love to take over. I love Shakespeare. I think he's a very clever man. And I think it's really neat reading his work because once you do the iambic pentameter, like you said, then you can start carving it out because he literally broke his iambic pentameter just to tell you how to say certain
Mm-hmm.
words. Or just to say, oh, look, this is how it's done because he knew it so well. And so the other thing that he uses is his spelling of words. If he spells mixed, M-I-X-K or M-I-X-T, which he didn't, but the translators did, it
Mm-hmm.
generally meant short.
Yep.
You're going to say that word really quick. Whereas if he spelled it like think with an extra E, you know to sit on that word. And then you go through and paraphrase. Once you paraphrase, you know how you're going to say it, but you can also emphasize those words and really carve them out, which I think is really cool. I love going through the text and just like iambic, paraphrase, then go through each word that's spelled differently because it literally, he told you how to speak these words, which
And
is
and
cool.
the and the other big thing with Shakespeare is that he gives you these beautiful images
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey does the opening prologue from Henry V, but that's just one example. Like Hamlet does it all the way through. He gives you all these fantastic images. Some of them are fantastic, some of them are grotesque, some of them are epic, and it's up to you to go through that text and figure out what those images are. And then, as one person I think said yesterday, is paint the pictures with the words.
Yeah.
And so it's like you really, like you're given this beautiful language, and fie on any director that goes through Shakespeare and starts cutting text in an effort for brevity. Because if you use the iambic and you use those pictures and you use your physical gestures, the audience is going to be on that, like listening to a fine piece of music, and it's just going to carry through the whole night, and you're going to be able to shift the audience with that. And I think going back to that monologue piece with Othello, it was very much in that style of where like he wants to do Othello. He probably loves Shakespeare, but he doesn't know what he's saying yet. So he just has to take that time to break it down into those individual thoughts and be able to color each one differently, so that way we can follow Iago's thought process at that moment.
Absolutely. And when you take time with it like that, you really get to know the understanding, and then the audience starts to understand. Because if you don't, they're like, okay, what happened here and why? Like, this is too much. Like, it's all starting to run together.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody who talks too fast. You're like, what did you say?
That's me. I talk too fast. There's a couple comments in the chat room. Chris Bass, along with like you were talking about painting it, but also like music, Chris Bass says the message has to flow with a melodic rhythm, emotional hills and valleys. Break the words apart and think about what they actually mean to the conversation. Hola said something really interesting. You literally do every line, every word with a different emphasis, and just write the ones down, the ones that work best and why. That seems like a lot of work. And if you feel you have too many choices, choose the ones most appropriate for the play character where you are at the moment before. That's a lot of prep work, but I'm sure it's extraordinarily helpful. Sandlin says, I am reading the words out loud and listen carefully to them and make my choices with my gut, in combination with actually knowing the play, scene, the words that help you, choosing the words to emphasize. And that's, I mean, what you were just saying about, like, particularly with a Shakespeare, giving you those hints of, like, this is how you should rest on this word, or this is how you should make it short. You don't get that in every play. So you have to, like, say it yourself. But it's really cool that Shakespeare does that. I actually didn't know that.
Last night I was working on my Hamlet monologue for this class, so you'll also see it on Monday. And we were drinking some pints, because that's the best way for me to memorize, evidently. And after every image, we would sit down and we would talk about what we got from that image, and really try to flesh it out, so that way I had a richer way of saying it. And I think that goes all the way back to why it's important to work with someone on your monologues and your scenes, because to have that discussion and to get feedback from someone else and then say, okay, I'll say it like this, does that feel like that now? They can be your audience member and go, okay, I really know what you're saying now.
There's a comment in here, and I don't know where it is, but there's talking about, Jacqueline says, paraphrasing the meaning in the way I talk helps me figure out how I connect to it. If I throw in a curse word, I know the real line in the script needs carved out. So basically, like, changing the script for when they're rehearsing to give it a chance to, like, give them, like, understand themselves better in their language and the way they would speak. And then once they've got it that way, they can take it into the real like text or whatever, which I think is really interesting, that you're finding the emotions in the paraphrase.
And you're finding the intentions as well.
Yeah, very cool. The next topic was knowing the monologue. The meaning of your monologue will help you carve out the words when emphasized. When working with tougher texts like Shakespeare, how do you figure out what the text means? But I feel like we've talked about that a lot. Do you guys have anything else to say about, like, figuring out how to work with Shakespeare? No, you guys said it.
Utilizing your tools. Just there's so many different ways that everybody enters the text. So iambic pentameter is one. Paraphrasing is one. If you want to do a mall, great, but find a way to really break into it, because it is so rich with life. So that's all I have to say about it.
I think, like, through like an arc, the paraphrasing is awesome to do. Like, if you're doing Romeo and Juliet and you're doing your introduction scene to each other, I think it's really great to do it through paraphrasing, because then you can find that romance And then once you find that romance and that kooky kind of epic kind of like, I will love you forever and you are the sun to me, then you really start to understand what they're saying to each other and these incredibly high stakes they've built for themselves that they can't possibly hope to maintain. And it's almost a black comedy in the fact that like this teenage love just gets so epic. But I think paraphrasing would help you get there. And then for like a long piece like Hamlet, talking about a lot of the issues that Hamlet has in a paraphrasing way, I think gives you a nice through line. It gives you the through line at least, so at least you kind of know where you're headed.
Well, and I like paraphrasing too, just because like you don't necessarily have to play it the way you paraphrase it, but it definitely helps you like, I would say it like this. So the audience knows, oh, if I'm saying, oh my God, I hate this, they're going to get, oh my God, I hate this through the context of Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
So you really get an idea of how to push through what the meaning is behind the words.
Cool.
Makes clearer understanding.
I'm going to move us on to our final lessons. We're at 10:45 already. We're 15 minutes left. So I want to talk about our final lesson before we get into reviewing assignments and answering questions. But the final lesson is grounding a monologue, lesson 5, and in that we see Steve's monologue, and Kevin has him do a domestic task to ground the monologue and give him another way to figure out what the words mean. So I wanted to ask, why did Kevin have Steve ground his monologue? What did it do to the piece and his performance overall?
Go for it, Amanda.
I felt like grounding his monologue, it helped better understand what was happening with the piece. I could more clearly understand how he was able to push forward what he was saying. But I also feel like grounding is so important, but you shouldn't ground too much. I feel like you have to find that balance, because I did that. I got hyper on coffee and I thought, oh my God, my performance tonight, I'm going to be so airy, and so I was like grounding myself, and my director comes back and he's like, it was a little too grounded tonight. Not a lot, just a little. And I was like, really? Because I totally was going like in my body. So I do think grounding is important, but it's important to remember that it's good to find that balance, and you can only find that balance by watching others and having others watch you.
I agree. Grounding is important for the simple reason that if you have a monologue, it shouldn't feel like a monologue when it's on stage.
Mm-hmm.
It should feel like a spontaneous thought that you just let ramble on. And I think a lot of us actors can all agree that if we're allowed to talk long enough, we will not stop talking. And we could be doing the dishes, we could be putting away books, we could be vacuuming, we could be walking down the street, but we will talk until we're done what we think is our thought. And so taking it away from the highfalutin text, as Spacey calls it, and making it into your text, your words, that's where grounding comes in great, because now it's your thought. This is something you're thinking right now. This isn't something you've prepared. And it's fun to watch actors on stage when you know their monologue is coming up. And some of them can just slip right into it, and others you can see them jazzing themselves up in their head, knowing, oh, here comes my big monologue right now, and here it is.
There was something that came up in the chat yesterday, and it's coming up right now. Let me find the quote from the person who just said it, but Ty Henry says, it keeps you in the zone. It allows you to focus more on what you're doing and your behavior rather than just focusing on saying words. In our chat yesterday, what people were saying was that when he started, he was packing his bag, and when he started doing that, his focus slipped away from, serving this amazing text and saying it exactly how it was, but gave him an opportunity to focus on like what he was doing physically, and then because he knew the monologue so well, he was able to connect those emotions, and it brought it out a different thing by taking his focus off serving something that he thought he was supposed to do it this way, and allowed him just to do it the way that felt naturally to him. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever had that kind of experience where you started doing something and then all of a sudden, like your performance comes off drastically different? I mean, you talked about that a little bit, Amanda, when you said you were hyped up on coffee. But have you guys done that before with like other monologues or other pieces?
Um, well, yeah, like the Tom Thompson. The trickiest thing about the Tom Thompson, because one, a lot of people don't know who Tom Thompson is, so that was a bit of an advantage actually. But the language was so high. It was like high English,
Right.
art, late 20th century kind of like that English you don't see anymore, and which is why people have a tough time reading like F. Scott Fitzgerald now. It's just very poetic and very flowing. But then to bring it into a real space, that was the biggest challenge. And I've had other monologues like I've done Zoo Story, and I was Jerry, and so like, the monologue in that the story of Jerry and the dog, um, probably an incredibly hard piece to really make interesting for the full 8 pages. So you really do have to find a realism in there, and you do have to find something that grounds you and keeps Peter there, and also keeps the audience with you. There's been a lot of challenges, but that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah.
I agree. Well, for me, like, it's the grounding is having your focus be strong enough, and you need to have it be specific enough that you are able to really let go and trust your own reactions, because physicality, we're very physical in how we talk, how we react, and so when you start being able to get out of the text and into that body of I'm reacting, what's going on right now, your body starts believing it as well. And your
Mm.
body starts understanding, oh my gosh, like I would act like this because it's not acting. It's real. It's crap. Like this is what's happening. And so that I don't know how to explain that better, but I know that that's how I feel. Like once I'm getting out of that, the auditions become more real because I have a specific person I'm talking to and not just an audience.
Hmm.
Cool. So that is actually all of our discussion topics for these lessons. We have 10 minutes left, but I wanted to ask if there was anything else you guys wanted to bring up before we go. There was one topic in here that I asked in the chat room that we'll bring up in a second, but I want to see if there's anything you guys had, any thoughts about any of the lessons or anything that you didn't get to say that you wanted to say.
I feel like I've said too much already.
So you said too much already. Amanda, anything from you?
Just Mary Ev said, put yourself into the circumstance, like the circumstances of a scene, and I really liked that because I hear that all the time in all my classes and everything is what are the stakes, what is the circumstance, you know.
Classic Stanislavski, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention Mary because I agree.
Cool. Let me just read a couple of the comments from some of the students about Steve's monologue. Janet says, bringing him to pack a suitcase breathed new life to the scene, and it was like a real person. It brought out human sustenance, took his mind out of the lines he had to say, and make it natural, which is very similar to what we were saying. And Eric says, I feel that Kevin had Steve ground his monologues because it is so easy to get caught up in the beauty of the words, but by giving him an everyday task, made the monologue so much more real. He became a real person when he was packing. In doing a monologue, you still need to be a real person because we were trying to connect with real people.
That's so important too. Sometimes you have to give yourself a task so that it does help ground your body.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're up here and then you need to be here. Yeah.
So I'm going to move us on to a question that came up from Dave Canuck in the chat room, and I want to see if you guys had any thoughts about it. Dave said, if auditioning for a play, do a stage monologue. If auditioning for a screen, do a screen monologue. So his question is like, when you're doing your auditions, what sort of monologue should you do? Should it change based on the type of medium that you're doing?
Most times, audition calls might give you options as to what they're looking for. They might say, oh, we want one comedy and one dramatic, and that can be from any source, really. Most directors, I find nowadays, if you come in with a prepared monologue, they will just coach you on it and direct you to say it in different ways, and that's how they'll see, okay, so he has line retention, great, but can he be flexible? Can he take notes? Can he take direction against what he thinks the character should be? Is he open to that kind of organic experience where there might be another option he can go that he didn't see before? So I think you can use a screen or I personally think you could use a screen or a stage in either scenario. I think it's
Absolutely.
more. I think there's more of the exercise that the director, a good director, let's say, would put you through, rather than just go, oh, well, that's when they play, and we're doing film, so you're stupid. No, I don't think that's going to happen.
I was really lucky in that I learned theater acting and TV acting at the same time, because I've been told that a lot of theater actors tend to be bigger, and so your actions and reactions are bigger than they should be for TV. And so I haven't had this problem, but I have noticed that with more theater, you have to keep that balance going. And I love the fact that when you get up on stage, just remember, like, you're still active, you're still reacting to these things, but you just don't have to be as big if you're a theater person and want to be on TV. Just, make sure you still have that emphasis in there. Just layer it with stillness.
Everyone seems to agree with you. Like you should do. Everyone, what does someone said? Mary says, I think that the question can vary. It really depends on what type of character you are auditioning for. Are they larger than life? Are they down to earth? Someone else says, Jason Sandlin says, I think maybe it is more important if the film play is a comedy or drama, then you should choose the monologue that fits the drama. So really, it seems like everyone agrees with you guys. It doesn't matter where it's from, as long as it fits the character you're playing. And I think maybe the important part is, can you take direction? Can you work with the director? Can you change? So I hope that helped answer your question, Dave. That is all of the questions we have today. I want to say thank you to you guys for joining us today for this chat. For everyone at home, if you want to help host a chat in the future, just please let me know. You can tag me on Facebook in the student group, or wherever you want, and just let me know that you're interested, and I'd be happy to have you. We'll hope to have these more as we continue the class intensive. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you later. I will stay in the chat room to answer any questions you guys have about the assignments. So awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brad.
Have a good day.
You too.